So, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Sheikh Abu Usamah, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. How you doing, Sheikh?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm well, alhamdulillah. Irfan, hope you're doing okay.
Alhamdulillah, I'm alright. You feeling good, Sheikh?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay, alhamdulillah. Shukran lakum.
Bit under the weather. All entire thing's changed now, so the temperature change has got to my system a bit. But inshallah, we'll be alright.
Tohor. It is interesting that last week we were dealing with the heat wave, and then only a day or two after that, we started having this weather that's been unpredictable. And another thing is, COVID is still on the scene and it's on the rise, because there are a lot of people who are coming down with COVID and even riding over here on the train. There were people coughing in the train. I was very conscious of that. So is it cold? Is it an issue of people having the flu and the cold? Or is it COVID? Allah musta'an.
You'll have to excuse me if I'm coughing a little bit, Sheikh. I'll look the other direction, inshallah.
It's funny. Yeah, I became self-conscious about that today. People coughing all over the place. And now, my man, you have it, Irfan.
You can't escape it. You can't escape it. But yeah, Sheikh, so before we jump into the topic, just to kind of set the tone a bit, I want to ask you, Sheikh, what's one thing that you don't hold back or you don't mind spending money on? So for me, a few years ago, it used to be clothes. I didn't used to mind spending money on clothes because I used to like the way they used to make me look, styling it in different ways. But now I think it's more for me, I don't mind spending money on food. So in other areas where I may be a bit cautious, on food I don't mind spending a bit more money because it's something I enjoy. But what would you say is the one thing for you, Sheikh? Could be like your outfit, could be like ouds or nice smells. What is the one thing for you, would you reckon?
I don't really know. I mean, off the top of my dome, that question caught me off guard, Irfan. But the one thing I don't mind spending money on are the necessities that you have to spend money on your family. That's your family. So the whole concept of money and spending in Islam, it governs the way we think and feel. So whenever we spend money on our family, like the food, the essentials, the gas, the electric, all of those things are the ibadah and the sadaqah. So one doesn't really hold back on that. But in terms of indulging myself, it's hard to say. I don't mind spending money on books. It used to be like that, not now so much. So I can't really say, Irfan. I'm stumped on that one. You caught me off guard.
We'll come back to it, inshallah, if we need to. So
your thing is clothes. You can spend a lot of dough on clothes.
It used to be, but now I'm not too bothered. I'll be honest, I kind of outgrown it. Now it's more just food.
Yeah, well, in terms of the whole concept of spending money, the Prophet did say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in an authentic hadith, verily the one who has one iota of kibr, he won't enter into the Jannah. A man say, Ya Rasulullah, but I like for my clothes, my thobe to be nice and my shoes to be nice. Is that a sign of kibr? Is that a sign of arrogance? He said, Allah is beautiful and Allah loves beauty. Kibr is rejecting the truth and looking down on people. So having nice clothes and being, a nice dresser is not like against the religion. This is something that's permissible. I mean,
I can see it with you, Sheikh, because whenever you wear a thobe, sometimes you wear a hat that kind of matches with it, and it's nice. I can tell you put a bit of effort into it.
So Irfan, what's going on today? You catching me off guard a few times, huh? No, it's, like I said, if a person wanted to represent in terms of how he presents himself to the public, it's permissible. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, you wear your nice clothes on Friday. You wear your nice clothes on the Eid. He said in an authentic hadith, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Inna Allah yuhibbu yara athara ni'mati ala abdihi. Allah loves to see the effect or the impact of the ni'mah he gave to a slave upon his slave. So if Allah gave you a ni'mah of wealth and he brought nice clothes, nice transportation, nice furniture and things like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as it was acquired the right way, you're not arrogant and you thank Allah for it. Because on the other hand, everything is a problem if you don't use it, for the pleasure of Allah, by thanking Allah, saying Bismillah, and not thinking you're better than other people by having it.
Just constant remembrance.
Yeah.
But so that leads us to our topic today, which is to do with risk. Risk is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and risk could be used to describe many things, all of the good things in this life. Is that correct, Sheikh?
Sustenance. Allah has provided people And he said in the Quran, وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, that he gave him the rizq from those things that are pure. So rizq can be knowledge, it can be wealth, it can be good akhlaq. Those things Allah is ar-razaq. He's the one who provides and he bestows. It could be all of that stuff.
So in this episode, we're going to be mainly referring to wealth. So I seen something, Sheikh, that it was from the Quran, I believe, where it says that do not kill your children out of poverty. We will provide for you and them. So I believe as a young person trying to grow up and navigate, trying to understand the importance of having wealth, but also not stressing too much about it because risk is from Allah. So in your own experience, how do you deal with something like that, Sheikh, knowing that it's from Allah, so you don't need to stress too much?
Well, being a Muslim and having faith in Allah and also having faith in the divine decree, the qadr, it should help a Muslim to kind of like put this issue in perspective. Because in that tremendous hadith that the Prophet mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to us, that each and every person is brought together, his creation in his mother's stomach, her womb, for 40 days as a sperm, and then for 40 days as a leech-like clot, and then for 40 days as a morsel of flesh. So that's 120 days. And then the angel is sent to that creation and told, blow into this creation the spirit of life and write down 4 things. And one of the things that is going to be written is your rizq. Your rizq. The Prophet said in another hadith, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your rizq has been written. It's written. So go after it in a honorable way. You're not going to get 1 single pound more or less from what was written for you. So when you stress out and things like that, it's kind of like it defeats the purpose of al-iman and al-qadr. But that shouldn't be misunderstood to mean you throw caution to the wind and you don't tie your camel and try to, do things that you're supposed to do in order to be successful. But from that angle, that's one of the benefits of al-iman and al-qadr. Every sin that comes our way is meant for you. And it says, so the Prophet said, فَجَمِّلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. So go after the money in a nice way, in an honorable way. Because anybody can get money. Person can get money by robbing people. I know some people in Birmingham, they had robbed a masjid. They waited till the uncle came out of the masjid and he was carrying a bag of money. And the money was the money of people who were performing Hajj. 50,000 pounds or something like that. And they robbed that money. So you can get money like that. A woman can go out and get money in a bad way. We can get money, lying cheap. We can get money. But just to answer the question, al-iman and the qadr, man, whatever was meant to hit you will not miss you. And what was meant to miss you won't hit you. And we're going to get every single thing that was destined for us. It's written in the qadr. But not to get off track, but dua, the Prophet said, can change that. If a person makes dua can increase you in your lifespan and in your rizq, Rasulullah said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So Sheikh, from the khutbah last week, you did it about being self-sufficient and independent. And I'm sure I heard you mention how the Prophet ﷺ did dua for, I think it was 5 things, or was it 4 things, Sheikh, in which he asked for sustenance. And, I was going to lead that to my next point, as in, how do we keep our intentions pure? As in, we can do dua and ask for these things, but how do we ensure that we stay on the right track and not have an ego and pride and think we're better than somebody just because we have money?
Well, I think the dua, I don't know, but during the khutbah, we mentioned that he used to ask Allah for al-huda, for being guidance, and al-tuqa, for taqwa, and al-afaf, being like upright and away from lewdness, and from al-ghina. He made dua to make him self-sufficient, to make him content with what he had. As it relates to not being arrogant because of money, then again, it's the Deen. Is it the Deen? We look in the Quran at those people who had money and they are going to have a problem. Yawm al-Qiyamah, there are stories in the Quran. Like Haman, who was one of the chiefs of Fir'aun. He was one of the leaders of Fir'aun. And Qarun, he was one of the chiefs and leaders of Fir'aun from Bani Israel. The treasures of these men required a lot of people to carry them. That's how much money they had. So we saw what their ma'al was, their final resting place was in al-Islam. And then the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also informed us. He said, verily Allah does not look at your money, and Allah doesn't look at your shapes, and Allah doesn't look at your colors, but Allah looks at your hearts, and He looks at your actions. So it's not the one who is Arab or a man or a woman or rich that, is heavy in the scale. It's the one who has a pure heart and his actions. If he's an Arab, he uses his Arabism to teach Arabic, to be an example of what the Prophet was upon in terms of akhlaq, to show the people this is how Arabs were, and this is what Rasulullah came to exemplify. If he's rich, he uses money to spend, fi sabilillah. If he's an individual who's strong, he uses his strength for al-Islam. So the hadith clearly shows Allah looks at your hearts, your niyyah, and your actions. He doesn't look at who's a man, who's a woman, and who's rich and who's poor. So that's how you stay humble. It's not about being flashy. The other hadith we had mentioned Friday may be connected to what you're saying as well. In Allah yuhibbu al-abdu taqi al-ghani al-khafi. Allah loves the slave who has taqwa, and the one who has money or he's self-sufficient, and the one who's khafi. You don't see him. He's hidden from the eyes of the people. He doesn't have to say, hey, look at me, and look at this watch that I have, and look at the, all the other accessories that I have. Look at my car. He doesn't have to say that. He's okay with being in the black background. So arrogance and money is a problem.
Yeah, and for some people, it could go hand in hand. And whilst you were saying that, Sheikh, one thing came to my mind was that I remember hearing that the person with wealth will have more things to be held accountable for on Judgment Day. Is that correct? Am I right in saying that in the sense that
that's absolutely correct? From one of the dalils of that, ثم ليسألون يومئذ عن النعيم. And then on that day, everybody's going to be asked about every ni'mah that Allah gave to him. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, verily in front of you is a steep mountain. Those people who have a lot won't be able to go over the mountain. So the more you have, the more you're going to be questioned about every ni'mah. And that whole reason that the Prophet mentioned that ayah, he went out with some companions and they were all hungry. Abu Bakr and some other people, men invited him, come have some dinner. And he slaughtered the baby animal and they ate the animal. And the Prophet told them, we're going to be asked about this. And he was like emotional with the situation. It was a serious moment where for most people, we just be happy to knock that hunger off our plate and we just eating. No, he reminded them, we're going to be asked Yawm al-Qiyamah about this ni'mah. We were hungry and Allah blessed us with this. So what about us every day? A lot of us, this is a big ni'mah, but we'll open it, we'll drink some of it, and we'll leave it right there and not think about it again because we have so many ni'mahs around us. For some people, this bottle of water is life. Or it's the difference between life or death.
True. And we take it for granted, don't we?
Yes.
We just leave it lying around or even waste it potentially. And that could be a setback for us, isn't it? All of these blessings could be kind of a fallback for us if we don't take them, if we don't appreciate them properly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, and another thing I wanted to talk about, Sheikh, is how there was a thing that the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, a time will come when one will not care how one gains one's money, lawfully or unlawfully. So I wanted to touch on how, although times may get tough, we have to just keep striving. It's better to have little and get it the right way rather than start getting lots of money in.
Yeah, that's a general rule in the religion. We should pay attention to it, and we should give our attention to it. That it's better to have a little that's pure than to have a lot that is not pure. That's a qaida, principle. It's better to do a little of the sunnah than to do a lot of innovation. Do a little bit of the sunnah than to do a lot of innovation, because you'll come Yawm al-Qiyamah regretful for all of that, and it'll be thrown back at you Yawm al-Qiyamah. So remember that principle. Getting a little bit is better than a little that's halal and pure, pleasing to Allah. Is better than doing a lot. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna ahabb al-a'mal ila Allah adwamuha wa in qalla. The most beloved deeds to Allah are the ones that are done consistently, even if they're a little bit. But you do it consistently. You do it all the time. So the one who comes and he prays Qiyamul Layl all day and then he doesn't do it ever after that. No, it's better just do one witr, but you do it all the time. Or whatever the case may be. Principle again. It's better to stick with a little bit that's pure, right, and exact and legislated than doing a lot that has nothing to do with what has been legislated or is an innovation.
I think that's a good mindset just for life in general. I think it could be applied to almost everything.
It's a principle, an Islamic principle that we should always remember. A person who traffics in narcotics, for an example, is an extreme example. He gives to the masjid £1 million of sadaqah, 50,000 pounds of sadaqah. That doesn't really benefit him. In an authentic hadith, the Prophet, he mentions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1 dinar overpowered and overwhelmed 100,000 dinar. The companions were shocked. How is that? What kind of mathematics are those? Whatever numbers you crunch, you'll never get that, equation. Rasulullah said, yes, 1 dinar overpowered 100,000. He said, how? He said, there was a man who had a lot of money. He was a billionaire. And he gave 100,000 dinar in sadaqah. And there was another man who had only 2 dinars. And he gave 1 dinar in sadaqah. So that 1 dinar and the impact of it and what it took to give in the scales, that nuance is very heavy. So it's not always about the quantity. It's about the quality. So having a little bit and being grateful. And that's one of the meanings of ghina, al-ghani. Allah loves the slave that's ghani. With what he has, he's content. He doesn't look at other people and say, I wish I did that. Or if he loses something after making a sincere effort to gain money, he doesn't think about suicide. He says, easy come, easy go. It's coming back to me.
Yeah.
He doesn't give up. And no, he says, easy come and easy go. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. You got to lose money to make money. That doesn't mean you set out to lose money. So I just think this thing about risk, man, if we had some Muslims who can, and I'm sure it's out there, people who talked about what is the Islamic understanding and concept of risk from all angles. Like Al-Islam came to protect what's known as the 5 dururiyat, the 5 necessities. One of the things Islam came to protect was the wealth of the people. So this issue of risk was not left out in our religion, man.
I mean, I read something else today in which it said that the money really has no value to us unless you can actually buy something with it. So keeping the money will not necessarily have anything for you in the sense of Judgment Day. That will be it won't weigh on your scales if you just hold all that money. And that actually leads me to the next point of giving up of your wealth is the source of true prosperity. And I also read that a Muslim should never hoard great sums of money. He should distribute it to those in need of it, as it'll bring no value to him in the sense of just hoarding it. And I'm not going to tell anybody to do with their money, but sadaqah is one of the best ways to benefit yourself in the hereafter. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, the money, one of the ways you clean up the money is by giving zakat, which means to purify, zakat, and also to spend it. And if you spend, money will come back to you. So it's one of the ways of making money is to spend it and not to hoard it. So like everything else, we just have to be balanced, because the fine line between hoarding and being bakhil and that the one who's a spendthrift. Islam doesn't want us to be spendthrifts. So saving your money, nothing's wrong with that, but hoarding the money, that's a great problem. So we use the money in order to do what? In order to plant seeds for ourselves. Put it into those things that are going to benefit. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned in all of those ayat. Spend from what we have provided you with before the day comes where there will be no friendship and there will be no intercessor. So spend before that day comes. The one who hoards the money seems like he's like the one who is believing and acting as if he's going to live forever. So the ayahs are clear for that. So it's just a balance, man. You have to be in the middle.
I think one last thing that, Sheikh, that I remember reading about is that we're all, in a sense, trustees with this money, as it didn't just come to us for no reason. We've been blessed with this, so it's given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have a right, or you have a responsibility, to use it appropriately and spend in the right way is, I'm just a trustee of this money. It's not my money necessarily. Is that a good way to think about it in life? Do you think?
Because we have those clear verses that say that. The ayah says, say, verily my life and my death, my salat and my slaughter, my life and my death are for Allah. My whole life is for Allah and my death. Inna salati wa nusuki. My salat, my slaughter, my sacrifices, and my life and my death. My life and my death are for Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very clear in the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said about the dunya, inna dunya hulwatun khadira, when Allah istakhlafakum fi. When Allah istakhlafakum fiha. The dunya is a place that is alluring, and it glitters and it glows. It's not what it's cracked up to be. It's an illusion and a mirage. He said, and verily Allah put you in here and made you responsible for it. Tested you with it. You're in charge. You have, Allah told the Malaika, I'm going to create a Khalifa in the earth. A Khalifa is the one who's responsible for, what's going on. That's the Khalifa of the Muslims. So we are mustakhlafun. All of us are in this earth, and we are shepherds, and we're all responsible for something. From that is our wealth, our families, our religion, all of those things. We have to determine what is the most invaluable commodity to us. And we have to determine that. What's the most valuable thing? Has to be your religion, has to be your honor, has to be your blood, and your money is up there. Whoever is killed defending his religion is a shaheed. Whoever is killed defending his honor is a shaheed. Anyone who is killed defending his family is a shaheed. Anyone who killed defending his money is a shaheed. Yeah. All of that is up there. But we have to determine what's the most important commodity. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ad-dunya mata' wa khayru mata'iha al-mar'atu salihah. This dunya is nothing but commodities, properties. Everything is what you own, what you have. He said, and the best thing to have in the dunya is a righteous wife. He said the best thing to have, because if you have money, she's ride or die and she's with you. And if you don't have money, she's ride or die and she's with you. Whatever your situation is. She said, alhamdulillah. So the whole dunya is, we have to determine what is the most important commodity. Has to be Islam. So when people say to you, okay, you can work here, but you can't pray. You can't go to Jummah. You can't wear hijab. You can't do this. So it was like, you have to eat pork. You have to serve pork. You have to do khamr. This, that. You say, nah, I can't do that. And you don't get sad and shy and cower under that. So this whole thing about risk and money and all of that, we go a lot of directions with that. Because right now, it is really, to be honest with you, it's the talk of the moment. And it always has been and always will be. How do we navigate through this dunya without letting it cause us to lose the game, as many of us are?
Go astray, you get too caught up in trying to make money. But one thing you always talk about, Sheikh, just before we wrap up, is you always talk about the concept of generational wealth. And I really like the idea that, instead of just making a quick buck here and there, we should try and instill skills within ourselves and generations to come, inshallah, so everybody has a means to do good. But yeah, Sheikh, you anything else to add? I think that was a pretty good episode.
No, except don't catch me off guard. You have to, it's okay, man. Let's just keep moving forward, inshallah, with our content. I told you there's one we want to do about that topic to make it clear to the people how we feel about the great Imam in Al-Islam. And inshallah, we'll deal with that as we move forward.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Sheikh.
You're welcome, man.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.